Alright, nothing special today, it's basically Shaman King release, but I don't care about that. But we do have a Greedon support, so why not? And also some more premium collection stuff, so let's begin. First off, to Nubatama, Rakutu Stealth Rogue Yasuka Lord. Its skill is Act Vanguard once per turn, costs counter blast 1, soul blast 1. Choose 3 of your opponent's unit cards from their drop zone, and then your opponent chooses any number of them and call them to rearguard. Auto abilities will not be activated during this call, and your opponent chooses a card from their hand for each called unit and discard them. And for each call that they do not make, draw a card and your whole front row gets plus 10k power until the end of turn. So basically, you can minus 3 on your opponent's hand, or if your opponent chooses not to do that, you get a huge ass power buff with some extra draws on top of it, which is still going to destroy their hand basically. I say this is actually a really good generic Nubatama card for any deck, although you can still accidentally net zero your opponent because if your opponent doesn't have a full board, well, your opponent doesn't really minus anything. That'll be more of a trade-off, but regardless, still a good card. And then we go to Rikuku Stealth Rogue Morai Lord. Its skill is auto, when placed on Guardian, cost counter blast 1. This unit gets plus 5k shield until the end of the battle for each card in your opponent's hand. If your opponent has 4 or less cards, you draw a card. Well, first off, Nubatama is all about destroying your opponent's hand, but if that really fails, then this still gets a huge shield buff. Of course, best case scenario is still for your opponent to have a huge hand for you to use this. Next to Genesis, we got Offering Souls Heavenly Dragon Jangdangna Lagra. Its skill is Auto Vanguard. When this card attacks, turn a card from your G-Zone face up, choose any number of cards with different grades from your drop zone and put them to soul. And then this card gets plus 10k power in return. Free soul charging if you need it. Second skill, when your opponent guards other than from deck, costs soul blast 3, retire that unit, and then your opponent looks at the top card of deck and calls it to Guardian. Basically, you get some sort of Die Kaiser effect. Every time that your opponent decides to guard, you can soul blast 3 to kill that Guardian, although do remember that it doesn't defeat the PG's ability. But luckily, since it's not his own attack and it could be any attack, this could actually screw over your opponent, just depends on the timing. Next, Heavenly Support Bright Dragon Anavarta, which the skill is auto when put on Guardian, costs put a card from your hand or rearguard to soul. This card gets plus 10k shield in the battle. Then put a total of 2 cards from your hand or rearguard to soul, choose one of your opponent's units, and it gets crit minus 2 until the end of turn. In many ways, it's actually similar to the Royal Paladin G-Guard in this set, because you could actually do this for 2 attacks. Kinda. What you can do is block 1 attack with a 25k shield, and then with the second ability, you can crit minus 2 on one of your opponent's other units. And minusing crits on your opponent can essentially equivalent to a PG sometimes. Sure, you have to give up a total of 4 cards in general, plus the heal Guardian, but for 2 big attacks, pretty worth it. And now for Pale Moon, Trenchant Mega Trick Leotrina. Its skill is Auto Vanguard. When this card attacks, cost counter blast 1, discard card from your hand, put all your rear guards into soul, and then choose up to 2 units from soul for each card you put, and call them to rear guard. If you call 4 different grade cards, until the end of the turn, when your opponent would call cards from their hand to guard in the circle, you get the Battle Door effect for 2 cards at the same time. I mean, it's basically typical Pale Moon multi-attack, but this one's a little more of a finisher, giving the Battle Door effect for other cards. And now to Jester Demonic Beast Flexion Chimera. The skill is auto when put on Guardian, costs put 1 or more cards from hand to soul, and then this card gets plus shield plus 10k for each card you put into soul for this cost. If 2 or more cards were put to soul for this, your opponent chooses one of their standing rear guards and put it to their soul. Forcing your opponent to lose a rear guard in mid-battle can suck sometimes if they don't have any back row, but your opponent gets to choose, so it's not the best option. And in many ways, getting the 10k shield for every card you put it from hand to soul is basically more of a trade-off than anything, while you're still getting resources. So it is a decent tech option, I have to say. And now for another YouTuber reveal, this time for Link Joker, Nebula Dragon Cosmic Dawn Dragon. Its skill is Auto Vanguard. When this card attacks, cost counter blast 1, look at top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 cards from among them and put them to rearguard as lock cards. Then, choose any number of lock cards and unlock them, or put them to your hand. But for each card you return to your hand, your opponent chooses one of their rearguards and lock it. This is a pretty decent generic Link Joker card for any Link Joker deck. Of course, best works with Messiah because there is the unlock part for multi-attack, but there is that nice choice of putting them to your hand so at least that you get more shield value for the next turn while still being able to lock your opponent's cards, and practically plussing at the same time. So overall, run this. Next, Terminal Ending Darkness Big Ripper. Its skill is auto When put on Guardian, cost Soul Blast 1, lock as many back row rear guards as you want, and this card gets shield plus 10k until the end of battle. And then if 2 or more were locked, draw a card. Few nice things about this card. First off, it didn't specify your own rear guards. It could be your opponent's rear guards as well, which could screw up your opponent's boosting lineup, mind you. The other thing is, locking your own rear guards for Messiah definitely really helps out a lot. Now, any other Link Joker deck, maybe not as much. Now, since this is premium we're talking about, there are still decks that could still retire stuff during the end phase, so locking them to prevent them from being retired is also another option. So this is overall a decent Link Joker G-Guard. And now with all the premium collection stuff out of the way, it's time to go for the Tuesday stream, which is only the one Greedon support, which is Desire Devil Dauphin. Grade 3, 13 power and skillless. Auto, when placed on rear guard from hand, if your Vanguard is Greedon, Soul Charge 2. Kind of guaranteed there, but the second skill is actually what kind of matters, because it's auto rear guard when this card attacks. If your soul has 2 or more Greedons, cost Counter Blast 1, this card gets plus 1 crit until the end of that battle. So far, Greedon support cards is the only thing that really uses Counterblast, so it's based on player preferences. The other thing is that this is actually pretty much the first of its rearguard support cards, because of course Greedon's a Vanguard centric deck basically. And plus adding the crit pressure on rearguard, it's okay, but this card doesn't really gain power. It would have been better if they just give Greedon the crit instead. But it's finally nice to have a nice rearguard beater for Greedon. So that's it for these reveals. What do you guys think about the premium collection stuff and the only Greedon support? Premium collection, just more good options, basically that's it. Greedon support, I'll probably try it. Nothing special. Don't care about Shaman King, forget the collapse. Bye bye.